The first thing Lyris noticed about the human was his teeth. They were wrong, too flat, too visible when he spoke, too calm. On her world, teeth were hidden unless it was time to feed or kill. Exposed teeth meant hunger, meant violence, meant death. So when the human smiled at her through the transparent holding barrier, Lyris pressed herself back against the cold metal wall and wrapped her four lower arms around her torso in a defensive bind. He was going to eat her. She was certain of it. The translators embedded behind her auditory ridges hummed softly as his voice filtered through the chamber. "Easy," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you." That made it worse. Predators always said that first. The capture. Lyris was a Ketheri, an insectoid species from the outer spiral of the galaxy, known for their iridescent carapaces and compound eyes that reflected light like fractured stars. Her people were explorers, historians, and bioarchitects. They were not warriors, which was why their research vessel hadn't stood a chance. The human ship had appeared without warning, tearing through subspace like a blade through silk. No hails, no negotiations, just silence, then gravity locks. Lyris remembered the panic on the bridge, the way the stars outside warped as their ship was pulled in, the way her captain ordered a data purge before the hull was breached. She remembered humans from the stories. Apex predators, meat eaters, world conquerors, and worst of all, curious. Curiosity, among humans, often led to destruction. Now she was here, alone, separated from her crew, stripped of her tools, waiting to be consumed or dissected or studied until there was nothing left of her but data. The human stood just beyond the barrier, tall and soft-skinned, with 2 arms and 2 legs and unsettlingly expressive eyes. He crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level. "I'm Dr. Elias Mercer," he said. "Xenobiology Division." Xeno. Biology. Her breathing spiraled. She clicked her mandible sharply, a Ketheri distress signal, but he didn't react. Instead, he tilted his head, studying her not like prey, but like a puzzle. That frightened her even more. Misunderstood monsters. 4 days, maybe weeks. Time blurred without proper light cycles. Elias returned. He never crossed the barrier. He never raised his voice. He brought objects, nutrient blocks, water samples adjusted for her biochemistry, even a small heat emitter tuned to Ketheri comfort ranges. Lyris didn't touch any of it at first. Poison was a common hunting tactic among predators. But hunger eventually overpowered fear. When she finally tasted the nutrient paste, she froze. It was balanced, precisely matched to her species' needs. No toxins, no sedatives. Confusion replaced terror. Why would a predator feed its prey? One cycle, Elias sat on the floor instead of standing. "I know what you think we are," he said quietly. "Your people have records on us. Some of them aren't wrong." He smiled faintly, then stopped himself, lips pressing together as if remembering how unsettling it was for her. "But we don't eat sentient beings," he continued. "Not anymore. And not ever off-world. Not anymore." The translator hesitated, then rendered the phrase accurately. Lyris's thorax tightened. "You used to?" she asked, voice clicking and layered with harmonics. Elias didn't flinch. "Yes," he said. "Long before we left our planet. Long before we knew better." That honesty disarmed her more than any weapon. The middle ground. Communication became easier after that. Elias learned her language faster than expected. Lyris learned human expressions, how bared teeth didn't always mean aggression, how silence could be respect rather than dominance. He told her about Earth, about oceans and storms, and a species that had nearly destroyed itself before deciding survival meant cooperation, not conquest. She told him about the Ketheri archives, living libraries grown from coral-like structures where memories were preserved biologically rather than digitally. You store knowledge in flesh? Elias asked, awed. Yes, Lyris replied. Flesh remembers truth better than machines. That sparked something in him. He began bringing her holograms of human history. Not the polished versions, but the painful ones. Wars. Extinctions. Regret. We're not proud of all of it, he said. But we don't hide it either. Slowly, Lyris realized something terrifying. The human wasn't studying her to dominate her species. He was trying to understand her. And worse, he cared whether she understood him. The turning point, the shift came abruptly. Alarm screamed through the ship one cycle, sharp and urgent. The lights shifted to emergency red. Elias burst into the chamber, breathless. We have a problem, he said. Another human faction had intercepted their signal. A militant sect that believed non-human intelligence was a threat to humanity's dominance. They want you, Elias said grimly. Your biology. Your archives. They think your species could outpace us. Lyris's legs trembled. They will eat me? She asked, voice thin. Elias shook his head. No, he said. They'll do something worse. He deactivated the barrier. For the first time, nothing stood between them. Lyris recoiled instinctively, every survival instinct screaming. But Elias stepped back, palms open. I can help you escape, he said. But you have to trust me. Trust a predator. Trust a human. Trust the creature she had been taught to fear above all others. Behind him, the ship shuddered as something impacted the hull. Lyris made her choice. Escape and revelation. The corridors were chaos. Smoke, shouting humans, automated defenses firing. Elias led her through maintenance shafts not designed for Ketheri bodies, apologizing constantly as her carapace scraped against metal. They reached an auxiliary pod bay. There's a single-occupant vessel, Elias said. Programmed with coordinates near your last known location. What about you? Lyris asked. He hesitated. They'll label me a traitor. She understood then. This wasn't curiosity. This was sacrifice. Lyris stepped closer, towering over him despite her fear. My people remember flesh, she said. And flesh remembers kindness. She placed one upper limb gently against his chest. A soft pulse passed between them, Ketheri memory transfer, limited but profound. Elias gasped as images flooded his mind. Ketheri archives, peaceful worlds, the truth of their species, not as resources, but as neighbors. Take this, she said, so they can never erase us. The pod doors began to close. Elias looked at her, eyes bright. Lyris, he said, I'm glad you learned we wouldn't eat you. She tilted her head. I'm glad I learned you were never the monster. The ending. Everything changed. The pod launched moments before the ship was boarded. Lyris watched the human vessel shrink into the void, unsure if Elias survived. But the galaxy shifted after that day. The memory she shared with Elias changed human records forever. The truth of the Ketheri spread through neutral systems, making secrecy impossible. Humans were forced to confront who they were becoming. Some resisted. Many listened. Years later, Lyris stood beneath a sky shared by two suns and a human-built station orbiting peacefully above her world. Elias stood beside her, older, marked by time, but alive. No one believes me when I tell them you thought we'd eat you, he said softly. Lyris's mandibles curved in what she had learned was the Ketheri equivalent of a smile. I was wrong, she replied. But fear often is. They watched young humans and Ketheri exchange knowledge, build together, argue, laugh. Predators no longer. Prey no longer. Just beings, choosing something better. And everything changed not because one species conquered another, but because one chose not to.